Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another great episode of Dad Jokes and Crypto. I am here with one of your favorite hosts, Robert and Travis. How are you, Robert?
Fantastic. And you?
Better than I deserve.
That could be true.
Another day in paradise.
Paradise? Never been there.
Paradise.
Let's hear Paradise, mate.
That's like the British accent or Australian accent. I love that accent.
It's a cool accent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wish I could do it all the time. I wish I could sound like Crocodile Dundee.
I always swap back and forth between British and Australian, no matter what. I start with
Yeah.
one, end up in the other, or start with the other and end up in the first. Yeah, it just goes back and forth. So
Excellent.
yeah,
I'm jealous that you can do that. I can't do that very often.
yeah, it's not great, but I do what I can.
Hey, question for you.
So yes, sir.
So, today's episode, we wanted to talk a little bit about Bitcoin ETFs. Is that correct?
That is correct.
What does an ETF stand for?
So ETF stands for Exchange Traded Fund. So my understanding, and not financial advice, I'm not an expert. It's basically being able, there's spot and futures ETFs. So it's basically a fund that you can invest in, say Bitcoin or maybe even Ethereum, either at the spot price or what they call futures, which is basically where you're betting that the price goes up or down. So if you're able to do a spot Bitcoin ETF, you can purchase this fund that has exposure to Bitcoin, but you don't actually physically hold the Bitcoin yourself. That's my understanding. Tell me yours.
So it's easier. Well, and that's kind of what I was thinking along the same lines. So it's easier for brokers and stuff to be able to leverage or trade funds like Bitcoin to be able to get their hands on Bitcoin versus going out and taking out a loan and buying Bitcoin itself.
Gotcha. Yeah, makes sense.
That's what I understand. It's like a bunch of people that try to gather together to buy a car, only the car is Bitcoin. And so everybody's investing a little bit of money into it and purchasing that. And so
Yeah.
that was my key takeaway from it.
Yeah, and I think in general, an ETF is similar to like a mutual fund,
Yes.
where basically it's like a mutual fund, because like a mutual fund, basically you invest in like a bunch of different stocks, all kind of combined into one. And similar with the Bitcoin ETF, from what I understand, is you are a group of people investing in Bitcoin. However, you don't actually own specific Bitcoin. Like if I were to buy a mutual fund that has some Home Depot or Lowe's stock in it, I don't actually own a portion of Home Depot or Lowe's. I'm just participating in this mutual fund, if I understand correctly. So
Okay. So another question for you then is, do you know what the pros and cons of it? Like, if I were to invest in anything, I would just go right into like a Coinbase app. Like, I like Coinbase, and I would just start purchasing Bitcoin straight out, like $100 a week or $200 a week or whatever I could afford to invest or lose, like whatever. I mean, depending on the market, and understand that the market will fluctuate, and so I may lose that, I may double or triple that, but I don't understand what the purpose of the ETF is other than to get people that don't want to invest in, or I guess maybe traditionally, is it a traditional thing? So more like
yeah,
it's available on the stock market. So people that want to invest in it that way, like uh,
I think
JP Morgan and
yeah, I think so. I think that is kind of the like the institution type um, approach to it, is that like they can get still exposure to Bitcoin, but they feel like it's not going to be as volatile if it's on an ETF, because it's managed by the SEC, or not managed, but
regulated.
overseen, yeah, regulated by the SEC. So they feel like they potentially have some security there, whereas they would, if they just went out and bought like you know Bitcoin at, it almost jumped up to 40K today. If they're like, oh, I'll just buy 10 Bitcoin at 40K, then I actually own that, and then next week it could drop down to 35K per Bitcoin, or whatever, and then it seems it will like kind of even out the volatility, I believe, is their interest in it. One of the cons is A lot of like diehard crypto folks are kind of, there's some that are kind of both sides. Some that are like, oh yeah, if that does happen, the price of Bitcoin will skyrocket, which it very well could, because more money will be invested into it. However, that also allows big players that are in these ETFs to potentially have some ways to manipulate the market.
Okay, and you and I talked just a little bit before the video too about ETFs and some of the big players. From what I understand, the ETFs are not necessarily legal, or there's a portion of it. So there's a spot ETF, and then there's the futures ETF, which is like you're betting on how much Bitcoin will either gain or lose in the future, like from a month from now. So if Bitcoin's at 40,000 now, if you were to bet on it in a month, you could say, I bet it's going to be 45,000, or I bet it's going to be 35,000, which is a futures ETF. Is that correct?
That's my
Which
understanding.
which I think is the legal portion of it, but there's some big companies that are at play that are trying to get spot ETFs legalized here in the United States.
Correct. And where that is, that means you go in and buy a Bitcoin at this price. Like if it is that 40K, you go and buy it at that price. That's called a spot ETF, I believe. Where the futures is, like you said, just betting on whether it will go up or down in a certain time frame.
How do they make money at that?
On the futures,
Yeah.
I think I don't understand it all, but I believe you basically borrow money at one price, and if it goes down, you're able to sell it. You're able to sell more or something. I don't. I better not speak on this actually, because I don't know that much about it. So,
do you think here in like the next video or two we can get Ben from BitBoy Crypto on here to explain this a little bit better for us? If you could just track him down and talk to him.
We're about at the same subscriber level, so I feel like we're about equals in the space. So probably not. But I think that might be a good thing for us to kind of research a little bit, like what future versus spot and why one's good or not, and kind of go from there. So
I agree. Okay. I agree. I have my opinion that I don't know a whole lot about ETFs, and I guess that traditional market. So I'm more comfortable with just purchasing it on an exchange like Coinbase or Uphold.
Yeah.
But that's just me, and that's just what I know.
I kind of like the idea of just owning my own, like owning my own coins, having my own, and you're not necessarily beholden to some other company that says, oh yeah, you give us $1,000, we'll make sure you get 1/30th of a Bitcoin or whatever. And it's like, yeah, I just rather just go buy a 30th of a Bitcoin and have it, So yeah. Especially that's the cool thing about cryptos. It's kind of leveled the playing field with the normal average person, because they can, if they have, the means or whatever, they can go and buy a little bit, buy a little bit, buy a little bit, and they can buy the exact same now what Elon Musk can buy, like if he has $1,000, which he has plenty of, and goes and buys $1,000 worth of Dogecoin, it's the same as if you or I went and bought $1,000 worth of Dogecoin, so it's kind of cool that it's able to do that, and it doesn't have all the restrictions on who can invest and who cannot invest.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Yeah. But so the real thing I was going to ask you today, Travis, was what do you call something that has 5 toes and it's not your foot?
I don't know.
My foot.
That was good. That was good. I was talking with my kids earlier, and my daughter was doing like a spelling test, or she was showing me some grades from her spelling test, and she says, Dad, icy is the easiest word in the English language to spell. And you know what? I see why.
I also see why. Yeah, good.
Well, everybody, we hope you had a good time watching us here at Dadjokes and Crypto. If you have any questions or you'd like to add anything to this video, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button or leave us some comments there. We value your guys' inputs and opinions, and future dad jokes if you would like to leave those for us too. We definitely love reading those.
Absolutely.
Thanks, everybody.
Even if we don't share them, we at least will read them to ourselves and laugh. So
accurate, very accurate.
See you, everybody.